Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 10 2019 NFL predictions. Well, after such a fantastic week last week, unfortunately for the Fanatic this week, just like as I believe many prognosticators, it was a very bad week all across the board for the Fanatic in both departments, against the spread and straight up. So for this past week, I am 3-10 against the spread and 6-7 straight up. Those are my two worst records of the entire year. It was definitely one of those things where I took some dogs in Detroit and Cleveland at the time, and they didn't pull it out. And then I took some favorites like New England and the Packers, and they ended up losing in pretty decisive fashion. So 3-10 are against the spread and 6-7 straight up. And just as a reminder, I am taking the Dallas Cowboys to win tonight straight up, but I'm going to take the New York Giants +7 on the line. But now overall for the year, I'm still above 500 against the spread, but I'm definitely getting closer to where my usual season average is. And straight up, I took a nice hit there too, or not as bad a hit. I am now against the spread 71-62-1 against the spread, and straight up now for the year, I'm 85-48-1. Those equal out to be 54-64% respectively. Definitely though, it was a bizarre week where a lot of the games that I got wrong came down to very close ending sequences. I took Indy to beat Pittsburgh, and of course Jacoby Brissett went down in the game, and Brian Hoyer had to finish it out. And I thought, Brian Hoyer did a okay job, though there was some weird clock management or just some horrible decisions, especially the Minkah Fitzpatrick 96-yard pick six return that swung the momentum of the game, and the fumble on the fourth down play. I knew they were almost in no man's land, but I didn't quite understand why the Colts went for it there. But of course, Adam Vinatieri, who at this point at the end of the year needs to retire, he shanked horribly a 42-yard game-winning field goal with a minute 16 seconds left. And I know you could say in terms of Ace Ventura, Ray Finkel, the laces were not out, and he hit it that way. But that was just a brutal loss. When you look at the Chiefs and Vikings, Matt Moore, again, solid effort in his second relief start for Patrick Mahomes, and he was actually able to get the big win. He made some big plays, Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins throughout the game. Travis Kelce kind of had a quiet game, but that was okay. And of course, the game I thought broke open on the Damian Williams 91-yard rushing touchdown. And I want to give the Chiefs defense credit after having one of the worst run defenses in the league all year. They held Dalvin Cook to about 70 yards, which for in this instance, that is good enough to win. Of course, they were also aided by Adam Thielen not being able to finish the game as he re-aggravated his hamstring injury. But I do want to give the Chiefs credit for being able to find a way to get that victory, especially with Matt Moore as your quarterback. So I thought that was another close blunder that I missed. The Lions-Raiders game, that one was just a back-and-forth effort. Josh Jacobs, what a fantastic game he had. He had over 100 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He's been the most consistent, first-round, running back this year. The offensive line's been fantastic. Derek Carr had another, good, solid 2 TD game, not that many turnovers. Darryl Worley made the pick of the year by getting in front of Kenny Galladay and basically using his one hand and shielding him and getting the pick. And also they had the big fourth down fake punt, which got 25 yards from Derek Carrier, which I thought was impressive. And again, this was a back-and-forth game. Stafford now is leading the league in passing yards. He had a 400-yard day, 3 TDs, and the pick to Worley. But what I didn't quite understand was Matt Patricia's decision-making. You get down to the 1-yard line and you run a pass to not your first-string tight end or your second-string tight end. Your third or fourth-string tight end in Logan Thomas is the guy that you went for to try to catch the game-winning touchdown. Obviously, that was incomplete, and that cost that game And then a couple of the other tough ones. Cleveland, of course, Cleveland and Denver. The immortal Brandon Allen got his first win by going 11 of 20 or 14 of 20 for about 200 yards and 2 TDs and no picks. And he outplayed Baker Mayfield. And it wasn't even close. The Browns had 5 red zone trips in the game. They were 1 of 5 from the red zone. The Broncos did not have any red zone trips, and they were able to win this game. I think it's because they had the Noah Fant 75-yard touchdown, where one of the Browns safeties actually got cut for after making death threats to social media fans who were criticizing his play on that one play. And for that guy, good riddance. We don't need dummies like that in the league. And then they had the Phillip Lindsay 30-yard TD run. But this is just one of those horrible instances where now for Cleveland, after you went through the toughest part of your schedule, you had the second easiest schedule remaining, and you couldn't even beat the Denver Broncos, who were on their third-string quarterback and traded away Emmanuel Sanders. And they don't even have Bradley Chubb at the other end rushing him either. So you beat a 3-legged horse in a you basically lost to a one-legged horse in a two-legged horse race. So that was a terrible job for the Browns there. The Packers-Chargers, that was the weirdest game of the day. I don't think anybody expected the Chargers to shellac the Packers from beginning to end. And that game really wasn't even close. The only reason why it was kept close was because the Money Badger, Michael Badgley, came back from his groin injury. And by the way, I don't know if everybody knew this, he actually trademarked that name. That is his own trademark. Money Badger, to play off the Honey Badger, of course, Tyrann Mathieu. But besides that, the Packers offense just could not do anything. They couldn't run the ball. Rodgers got sacked 2 or 3 times. And it was just stunning to see. And I want to give the new offensive coordinator for the Chargers, Strick something. He had over 400 yards of offense. Melvin Gordon had 80 yards and 2 TDs. Eckler had a solid game. And that Chargers team finally, for the first time, looked like the Chargers team that looked from last year. I don't know if they can keep that up consistently, but at least for this week, they got a nice win. The only pick that I regret, and I'll talk about the Ravens and Patriots later on when I talk about the Ravens-Bengals game. The only pick that I regret is Houston and Jacksonville. That game just got out of hand quickly. I threw 50 to 60% of that game. Gardner and Deshaun were trying to move the football against tough defenses. But when Gardner got that first pick and they got it into a touchdown, or the later on in the game when Carlos Hyde gets a huge run for over 50 yards, he fumbles it and goes into the end zone. But in the very next play, Gardner Minshew throws another pick. That was really the end of the game. It ended up being 26-3. It was a blowout win for the Texans. Job well done. They did not have Laramie Tunsil, Lonnie Johnson, Will Fuller, or Bradley Roby, or J.J. Watt in the game. And for the Jaguars to look that flat against that depleted of a defense was very disappointing. And it is probably the only pick that I regret out of the ones I made this past week. All right, so before I get into my picks, let me tell everybody the bye teams for this week. The Denver Broncos, the Denver Broncos, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Houston Texans, the Philadelphia Eagles, the New England Patriots, and Washington Redskins are all on byes this week. So if you have Phillip Lindsay, Cortland Sutton, the Pats defense, Tom Brady, James White, Carson Wentz, the Eagles defense, Alshon Jeffrey, Miles Sanders, Adrian Peterson, Gardner Minshew, Leonard Fournette, the Jags defense, Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, Carlos Hyde, Kyrie Fairbairn, Nick Folk. If you have any of those players on your fantasy teams, bench them because they will not be playing this week. This is the largest amount of buys that we will have during the bye stretch. The other 2 weeks heading up to Thanksgiving, there are only 4 teams on bye those weeks. So now let me get into my picks for each game. So this Thursday, when the 4-5 Los Angeles Chargers go to the 4-4 Oakland Raiders, this game right now is a pick'em. So with that being said, I'm going to take the Oakland Raiders against the spread and the Oakland Raiders straight up. And then on Sunday, when the 3-4-1 Detroit Lions go to the 4 3-5 Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I like the Detroit Lions here, plus 2.5, and Detroit Lions straight up. And then the next game, when the 6-2 Baltimore Ravens go to the 0-8 Cincinnati Bengals, the Baltimore Ravens are 10-point favorites in this game. I like Baltimore here, minus 10, and Baltimore straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-2 Buffalo Bills go to the 2-6 Cleveland Browns, amazingly, with these two teams, the disrespect that is shown to Buffalo here is absolutely amazing to me. The Cleveland Browns are 2.5-point favorites in this game. And with how bad the Browns looked and just how inept and dysfunctional they all look, with Odell talking to Baker, not being able to make plays, Freddie Kitchens not being able to manage timeouts and basically burn the rest of the clock that the Broncos got a first down, which they did. The Broncos could have won the game. I'm going to take the Bills here, plus 2.5, and Buffalo straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-3 Kansas City Chiefs go to the 4-5 Tennessee Titans. The Kansas City Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I like Kansas City here, minus 3.5, and Kansas City straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-7 Atlanta Falcons go to the 7-1 New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are 12.5-point favorites in this game. I like New Orleans here, minus 12.5, and New Orleans straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-7 or 3-6 New York Giants go to the 5-3 when they go to the 5-3 or 4-4 Dallas Cowboys. The New York Giants are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I like the New York Giants here, minus 2.5, and the New York Giants straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-1 Arizona Cardinals go to the 2-6 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Arizona Cardinals are 4.5-point underdogs this game. I like Arizona here, plus 4, and Arizona straight up. Then the next game, congratulations to the Miami Dolphins for getting their first win. That means the Bengals are the only winless team left in the league. When the 1-7 Miami Dolphins go to the 5-3 Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts are 11.5-point favorites in this game. I like Indianapolis here to win straight up, but I will take Miami plus 11.5. Then the next game, when the 5-3 Carolina Panthers go to the 7-2 Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers are 5.5-point favorites in this game. I like Green Bay here to win straight up, but I'll take Carolina plus 5.5. Then the next game, when the 5-3 Los Angeles Rams go to the 4-4 Pittsburgh Steelers. The LA Rams are 4-point favorites in this game. I like the LA Rams here, minus 4, and the LA Rams straight up. Then in the Sunday night game, when the 6-3 Minnesota Vikings go to the 5-3 or 4-4 Dallas Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Minnesota here in an upset, so I will take Minnesota here plus 3 and Minnesota straight up. And then finally on the Monday night game, when the 7-2 Seattle Seahawks go to the 8-0 San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers are 6-point favorites in this game. I like San Francisco here to win straight up, but I will take Seattle plus 6. Alright, so time for my thoughts on each game. The Oakland Raiders over the Los Angeles Chargers. This game is a genuine coin flip game for me. I look at what the Raiders and Chargers are doing, and you really see them as two more similar teams. They both have 4 wins, and they both have shown consistency to be competitive. Like the Chargers have had a bunch of games where they basically have been in it at the end, and they either pull out the victory or they choke it out at the end. Kind of like the same thing with the Raiders. Basically, besides week 2 and week 3 against the Vikings, every other game the Raiders, there's 3 games. I guess you have, in all but 3 games this year, out of the 8 they played, in 5 of them, they have been able to either win or they've lost in pretty close fashion. And looking at how the Chargers' history with the Raiders, I could definitely see the Chargers and Raiders game being incredibly close. This is why I like it to pick them. But I'm going to take the Raiders here because they're home. I like how they're running the football in Oakland. even though Trent Brown's injury will be something significant to watch if he's able to play on Thursday. I also like that their offensive line is the second most protective in the league. Derek Carr's only been sacked 9 times. And when I just look at this Charger-Raider game, it just comes down to me to home field. Because I feel like the Chargers' receiving core has been banged up. It's really just Mike Williams. Keenan Allen's still there, but he hasn't really made as much of an impact as they would like in Los Angeles over the last few weeks. And the defenses, look, you got Melvin Ingram coming back with Joey Bosa. That should be big going against this Raiders offensive line. But there's just something telling me with the Raiders, with how they've been playing, with how Garyon Conley's made some nice contributions, with how Carl Joseph's finally made some more plays in the secondary. I just think the Raiders pull out this victory, especially since these are the last few games in the Oakland Coliseum before they will move to Las Vegas. I think they get a big win here over the Chargers and still keep themselves in a competitive playoff position. I don't think the Chargers are completely out of it with a loss, but I feel like with the Raiders, they've just been a little more consistent, and I'm going to trust the home field advantage in this game to pull out the victory. Should be a close game, though. I wouldn't be surprised if all the Chargers win, but I'm going to take the Raiders. It's a pick-em game, basically, and I just think the Raiders at home, they've been a little bit more consistent, and I just like what I've seen out of them compared to the Chargers, who are much more inconsistent with their play. So that's like the Oakland Raiders here against the spread, and the Oakland Raiders straight up. The next game, the Detroit Lions over the Chicago Bears. This is one where I'm going to take the Lions here because what I saw in the first half of the Bears-Eagles game was absolutely dreadful. The Bears, ladies and gentlemen, gained a grand total of 9 yards in one half. 9 yards. How pathetic of an offense, with even guys like David Montgomery, Tariq Cohen, Allen Robinson, Taylor Gabriel, Riley Ridley, Trey Burton. How do you, in a half of football, only gain a grand total of 9 yards moving the football offensively? And I do want to congratulate Trubisky when he threw a big bomb to Taylor Gabriel. That was the first pass a Bears player was able to complete all year, traveling 40-plus yards down the field. That was their first big play. When I look at how the Lions have played, in 7 of their 8 games, they are one-possession games. And I feel that same way with the Bears. I feel like with the Lions and Bears, I just trust the Lions' offense more in this game because I feel like both defenses, I also think Trubisky, Stafford's going to be able to move the ball more on the Bears' defense than I believe Trubisky will on the Lions' defense. Because the Lions' defense has shown you in games and in moments they can play, consistent defense. They tied up Arizona. They beat the Chargers. They played competitively with the Chiefs. They should have beat Green Bay. And I think with those point totals they've been able to score, I don't think Trubisky will be able to match that to an extent. I think the score for the Bears to win this game would have to be between 17 to 20. And I don't think I could see the Lions giving up that many points. I know it was the Raiders, but the Raiders have a better offensive line. They've had more, confidence around their teammates and the weapons they have. But just after seeing what I saw out of the Bears, it gave me a little bit of optimism, but at the same time, they drove right down the field to get a game-winning field goal to ice the game. And I just really like what the Lions have done. Every one of their games have been close, and even though I'm wrong about this one, I know I have a good chance that it will be close. And just looking at how the Bears are playing their last 2 home games, I think the only home win they have is against Minnesota, which really isn't that impressive. And I feel like the Lions, they'll keep it within reach, and I'm going to just sneak out a victory off of just being able to make more plays with Stafford. I think Trubisky makes a few more mistakes. It's going to be about how many more plays Stafford can make, or it's about how many more plays can Trubisky not make compared to how many that Matt Stafford can with his arm and his legs, and with how many of those plays from Stafford could be considered good or bad. And I believe that's a higher amount than what the Bears have with Trubisky. So that's why I like Detroit here, plus 2.5, and Detroit straight up. The next game, the Baltimore Ravens over the Cincinnati Bengals. I am taking the Baltimore Ravens here, minus 10, because the Baltimore Ravens, I will say this to every Ravens fan that is watching me right now, we are a genuine Super Bowl team. It is downright shocking to see, how dominant we were against the Patriots. We are the first team in NFL history through 8 games to average both 200 yards passing and rushing on the ground and air. This was Baltimore's first win against the Patriots since 2012 in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson threw about 160 yards. He ran for another 60 yards. He had 3 total touchdowns. It was an absolute beating from beginning to end, 17-0 right off the bat. We were the first team to score on the New England Patriots defense's first possession, which is pretty surprising, even though I guess it's not when you look at how great this Patriots defense has been over the year. But I really just saw, what I saw out of the Ravens, I was shocked, and I will say to everybody now, we are a genuine Super Bowl team, and I could think we could beat anybody in the AFC playoff picture, including the Patriots, once again, even if it's in Foxborough, Massachusetts. I like what Marlon Humphrey did. I congratulate him on 2 back-to-back defensive touchdowns in back-to-back games. He got the 1 fumble, the scoop and score from DK Metcalf, and this one he got from Julian Edelman, which was significant. Mark Ingram had over 90 yards on the ground, and every time Lamar would just put the ball in Mark Ingram's gut, he always seemed to have more burst and be able to make more explosive runs compared to Lamar, who made some incredible plays, but they were definitely more about escapability and trying to, stop tacklers from getting in and moving the ball forward. When I look at the Ravens, I look at a team that's been the number 1 in time possession, number 1 rushing offense. We held the ball against the Patriots for 37 minutes, which is what you need to do to beat the Patriots. You need to have them sit on the sideline and just watch Lamar play. Lamar Jackson had 2 big 4th downs, 4th and 7 and 4th and 4. He was able to convert both of them. One on a 0 blitz throw to Mark Andrews, and the other one to Willie Snead on a flat drag route that got him out just over the line to win the game. I think that the Bengals could maybe put up a fight, even though I know they just benched Andy Dalton for rookie quarterback Ryan Finley, a 4th rounder, I believe, from NC State. Good luck to him in his first start, but I feel like with how the Ravens are, we could be in for a huge surprise and keep this momentum going, or we could just hit a wall and let the winless Bengals beat us. And for anybody saying, well, that's probably not going to happen, the Ravens are so much better than the Bengals. Oh yeah, talk to Jet fans. I know they're not. I know it's not the level of better, the same. But shout out to Logan Schiff, fellow Jets fan. He just saw the other day that the Jets can lose games to winless teams. So teams can lose to winless teams. So I'd be very nervous, Baltimore, going into Cincinnati. Don't read your plus clippings so much. And just think of Cincinnati just like everybody else and just roll through them to get to a much bigger game, the Week 11 game back at home against the Houston Texans. Should be a great game, though, but I'm going to take the Ravens here. Just better talent, better being able to manage. And I think the Ravens won this one pretty easily. So that's what I like Baltimore here, -10, and Baltimore straight up. The next game, the Buffalo Bills over the Cleveland Browns. I am going to take the Buffalo Bills here, +2.5, because I don't understand what people are seeing to say that the Browns are going to win this game. They are 2.5-point favorites. This is a 2-6 football team that, after losing to the Ravens 40-25, they got blown out by San Francisco 31-3. They lost to Seattle 32-28. In a game that was basically won off Baker Mayfield throwing 3 or 4 picks. You have, New England. They won 27-10, and then you have this game where they won 24-19, and it wasn't even close for a majority of the game. When you look at Buffalo, like I said last week, Buffalo is a team that, when you look at them, they're like Wisconsin and Iowa. They beat another tomato can in the Redskins, but that gets them 6 wins. And by the way, just a fun little stat here. That means Josh Rosen this year has more combined wins than the other 3 starting quarterbacks besides Lamar Jackson. Take out Lamar Jackson. Besides, when you have Baker, besides with Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Baker Mayfield, and Josh Allen. I feel like Lamar's number 1 by far. I think he's still driving in the driver's seat as the best quarterback in that class. Baker would be second. I feel like Josh Allen No, I'm sorry. I feel like Josh Allen. Let me phrase it. Josh Allen would be second because even though Baker may throw a prettier ball and he may have more arm ability to control the angle compared to Baker, at least Josh Allen's winning football games. This Bills team is 6-2. It's their best start since 1993. But yeah, I'm going to take the Bills here because I just look at the Browns offense and go, how are they going to be able to move the ball? I don't see it. I don't see the Browns being able to move the ball on this third-ranked defense. The Bills have been systematically been able to just grind you to the end of the game with runs and picks and just simple passes, shallow routes, deep slants, just so Josh Allen can just relax and feel comfortable in a game where he's playing a Browns team that right now just doesn't really feel motivated to play. I feel like at the way Odell and Baker are going to have their disagreement with the receiving opportunity on the 4th and 5 play where Odell beats Chris Harris for an easy touchdown. I just think with the Bills, this Bills team is a great team. It's a consistent football team. It's not a team that's really going to make it that far in the playoffs because as soon as you force Josh Allen to throw, if you can shut down the run, you're pretty much in a great spot to be able to win that game. Do I think Cleveland has a chance? Sure, because I feel like with Nick Chubb being able to run the ball, one of the better runners in the league, I feel like the Bills should be able to at least manage the damage that Nick Chubb will do. But I just look at the Bills and I go, look, they haven't beaten anybody great. Cleveland, I think everybody would agree, would not classify as being great. And I would take the Bills pretty easily in a heartbeat just because I trust Josh Allen a little bit more. I trust that he's able to make better decisions. And I look at the Redskins as a team that's just dysfunctional as all get out. With Freddie Kitchens not knowing how to use timeouts and other stuff going on, I feel like the Bills win this game pretty easily to get to 7-2. No, I don't think anybody would have expected the Bills after the end of this year, going into this year, going, hey, the Bills are going to be 7-2 and locked in the 5th seed for the wild card spot. I think everybody would be laughing and going, oh yeah, that's right, and we're going to soon have electronic, applications to download and stuff like that. It is hard to believe that Josh Allen is the second best quarterback in this draft class right now, but that's what it looks like right now. But I'll take the Bills here because I trust their defense, and I just don't really trust Cleveland being able to move the ball or regroup themselves into a big Monday night game to just try to get off the schneid and gain a little bit of confidence about how they're playing going into next year. So that's why I like Buffalo here, plus 2.5, and Buffalo straight up. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Tennessee Titans. This is one where I didn't quite understand what the Titans were doing because the Chiefs had one of the worst run defenses, and they didn't even really attempt to run in many of those situations in big spots. When you look at how Tannehill played, he had that one pick early and the other fumble, but I thought he played okay, where with Mariota, it was just literally just trying to drop a lot of stuff. There was some just other bad issues that went on with the Tennessee Titans there. Tannehill kind of, after having 2 solid games, he ended up playing a Mariota-type game, and I think a lot of people that were rooting for Mariota are saying, well, you were all confident earlier, but now when Tannehill goes down or he starts playing against a better defense, he doesn't look as good. Which I get. But I feel like with the Titans, this is just one where, look, the Chiefs should get Patrick Mahomes back, and I feel like that should be enough to be able to pull out this victory against a Titans team that, as weird as it is, they're not a bad 4-5 football team. They're just, again, one of those tough luck losers that tends to sometimes, depending on how good or bad they do, within the zone. Do I think Tennessee has a chance to win? In some ways, yes. If they're able to run the ball well, and if that Titans offensive line can push through Chris Jones and other KC defenders. I'm going to take the Chiefs here. Mahomes should come back, and that should be enough to be able to pull out this victory. So that's why I like the Kansas City Chiefs here over the Tennessee Titans. The next game, the New Orleans Saints over the Atlanta Falcons. I am taking the New Orleans Saints here because they are coming off a rested bye week. where nobody in Atlanta really has been able to do anything. I feel like this is a complete mismatch, especially going into the Superdome, where Drew doesn't lose very often, if at all. And I just really, when I look at this game between the Falcons and the Saints, it's one where I look at the Saints as this consistent machine that's been able to win games and do them well, run the ball well, throw the ball well, not make as many turnovers. Or you look at the Cardinals, it's almost the exact opposite. It's where Jameis Winston, who fumbled again yesterday, now has 22 career fumbles, which leads everybody else basically by a mile in the NFL ESPN pool. But I'm going to take New Orleans here because I see a team that's rested. Sean Payton has a pretty good record coming off a bye. He tends to show with Atlanta's defense that they're no match for him. I also feel like if Atlanta, they should be able to, be able to stuff the run. And leaving that Ryan one-dimensional is a problem for every fan out there, and I just don't think that'll be enough for him to try to win this game. The reason why I took 12.5 was because I've seen New Orleans play, and there's really no flaw in New Orleans' game that makes me not want to visit them or makes me want to try to be more a believer in the Falcons. After what I've seen, I think it's very hard for anybody to believe in the Atlanta Falcons, and it will all close on Sunday when they go to New Orleans and get their rear ends kicked by the Saints. So that's why I like the New Orleans Saints here, minus 12.5, and the New Orleans Saints straight up. The next game, the Battle of New York and the Battle of more mediocre, the Giants are going to take on the Jets. The reason why I took on the Giants is because the Jets are that bad. The Jets are just a horrible franchise that can't seem to do anything right. They have their head coach sitting alone in the stands. They have their center calling out Sam Darnold. And it's just a really bad move by Adam Gase to let this guy, to let Sam Darnold play the way he's doing. I don't think all of it is fault. I do think there are faults on Sam, but I also feel like with Adam Gase, it is very difficult to try to see how you can get people to come to Jets games besides watch Jamal Adams. Because as soon as that ends, or if they're not doing well, nobody's going to want to come to New York to play football. Do I think the Jets have a chance in this game? I do, but it's not as much. So I would, I think it'll be closer. But I don't think the Giants, with how they're playing, are going to be able not to win this match just because of their confidence in the talent they have, being just better than the Jets. And I just like the coaching matchup. I'll take Pat Shurmur and the way he coached his team versus Adam Gase, who doesn't really do anything except mope in order to win the Battle of New York game between the Giants and Jets. That's like the New York Giants are minus 2.5, the New York Giants straight up. The next game, the Arizona Cardinals over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is one where I'm going to trust that Kyler Murray has the ball in his hand last, and the Cardinals win off a touchdown at the end of the game. It should be, interesting to see how Arizona and Tampa do. Very similar, both young quarterbacks, even though I feel like with Winston, there's a lot more pressure on Jameis Winston's ear than John Dorsey's. Even though I think there should be, especially with Kittle, wrong team. Especially with O.J. Howard being out, that's big. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin can't save them forever. And honestly, I feel like of Arizona, they just have a more unique way to run an offense compared to Lamar and the Ravens, or it's very similar in that way. But I just have very little confidence in the Buccaneers to win this game, especially when they gave up 31 points to the Seahawks, and they gave up 6 more in overtime to ice the game, and that was it. Would I be surprised if Tampa Bay won this game? Not at all. But I'm going to take Arizona here. I've trusted what they've done. I think they're a little bit better defensively, and I like what Kenny Drake's doing on the ground. I think that should be enough to beat a Tampa team that may have more talent on paper, but just continue to show week after week that, they can't close games. And that's important. So that is why I like the Arizona Cardinals here, plus 4.5. The Arizona Cardinals straight up. The next game, the Indianapolis Colts over the Miami Dolphins. I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts here, Brissett or not, just because I want to congratulate the Dolphins for their first win. Ironically, their first win, their last 2 wins, Adam Gase was involved in some way. Their first win, they allowed Adam Gase to win the game. In the second game, they picked off Sam Darnold and a play from Adam Gase to win that game. Do I think that the Dolphins have a chance? Absolutely I do, because I feel like the Dolphins over the last 3 or 4 weeks have shown you that they are a consistent team, and they've shown that they played better, and they're not quitting for Brian Flores, and Brian Flores now can keep his job because he has his lone win of the year. That's all you need in the league to at least go through your first year, in my opinion, as a first-year head coach. You have a lot of room to improve in Miami, if it's Patrick or Rosen or somewhere else, but you've been able to play well enough that you can believe that you can win in a game that really shouldn't be close, but of how the Colts' offensive line issues are going on. Ryan Kelly was out, and there were other offensive line issues. They don't have T.Y. Hilton probably for another week. That hurts their offense. I think the Dolphins cover the spread, but I just feel like with the Colts, they get a big-time win that allows them to keep pace with the Texans. So that's why I like the Indianapolis Colts are straight up, but the Miami Dolphins plus 11.5. The next game, the Green Bay Packers over the Carolina Panthers. I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers here just because even though Christian McCaffrey, again, who's in MVP conversation, became only the second running back since Priest Holmes in 2002 to have over 1,200 plus rushing yards and I believe about 500, 600 rushing yards. He's been that spectacular the entire year. I think it's been real consistent and impressive with his usual, consistency. But I really like the Packers here just because I feel like that Packers game was an anomaly, and I feel like the Panthers, anyone coming over, they're a little more motivated, a little more hyped, and I just don't think with Aaron Rodgers coming off a loss, he said it was a big piece of humble pie they were about to eat, which I thought was very significant. But I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers here. I also do want to congratulate Christian McCaffrey for becoming only the second running back since Priest Holmes in 2002 to have over 1,200 plus rushing yards and 13 touchdowns only through halfway through the year. So I do want to congratulate him for that tremendous accomplishment. And I feel like if they're able to run the ball and get a turnover too, they can definitely compete in this game. But from what I've seen from Green Bay, what I've seen out of Carolina, Kyle Allen's likely to go again this week because Cam Newton, who does not need surgery, does need a lot of medical rest in order to heal up his aggravated foot injury he suffered in week 2. When I look at the Packers here, they're a little bit better. I'll take the better quarterback. I'll take the better offensive line. The defenses, I feel like, are about to push. And I just really feel like the Packers, they're not going to drop back-to-back games, especially to these two teams that are, not bad, but they're more just still in the playoff hunt chasing their kickers from the previous game. Do I think that, Carolina could win? Sure, but I'll take Green Bay just because better quarterback, motivated staff, and I like that defense putting pressure on a rookie Kyle Allen. So that's why I like that's why I like the Green Bay Packers here to win straight up, but I'll take Carolina plus 5.5. The next game, the LA Rams over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Congrats to Pittsburgh for being able to sneak out a victory against the Brian Hoyer-led Indianapolis Colts, 23-24. I feel like with Mike Tomlin, he's been able to keep his job week after week with these just impressive victories. They've won 3 of the last 4. They've been really good, and I just don't see an offense being able to stop them, especially with Mark Andrew. Lost a little track there. Especially with how some of those plays went. When you look at the Rams and the Steelers, getting Ramsey was significant, but the good news is he's a corner, and so you don't need you can just stay away from him and let the other secondary members take on Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Tyler Higbee, Josh Everett. Let the Steelers do that for you. And it's just one of those things where, look, you beat up Brian Hoyer last week. You're playing Jared Goff this week, a rested Rams team that usually tends to play pretty well off a bye. And that's the biggest reason why I'm going to take the LA Rams here to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. It could be close. I feel like it could be a defensive game, a defensive struggle, especially with how the Steelers defense is getting. They've already caused more turnovers than they have made last 2 years. So I really do want to see how the Steelers team is, because I feel like if they're able to compete against the Rams, they're going to be a genuine team. And if they beat the Rams, then we got another genuine Super Bowl team in the Pittsburgh Steelers without Odell Beckham, without Antonio Brown, without Le'Veon Bell, without Ben Roethlisberger, and they're able to win games like this to get to 5-4. Tremendous job for the Pittsburgh Steelers over the last few weeks. So that is why I like the LA Rams here. -4 in the LA Rams straight up. The final two games, the Vikings over the Cowboys. I'm sorry, the Dallas Cowboys over the Minnesota Vikings. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings. Lastly, and sorry, I had to just think of a second before I pulled it up. Lastly, the Minnesota Vikings over the Dallas Cowboys. I like the Minnesota Vikings here just because I have confidence in what the Vikings are going to be able to do on a consistent basis. And I just feel like with the Cowboys that, like, in these big spots, I know, Dak Prescott's never lost to Kirk Cousins in his life. I just feel like with what happened with the Vikings, Dan Bailey's going to be motivated to play his former team. I just think Kirk Cousins is finally able to beat the Cowboys in a close game just due to his ability to make plays with his arm. Adam Thielen's injury is going to be significant. Thankfully, the Vikings are the underdog, so it's not like I'll be losing a lot. But I like the Vikings here because I just have confidence in the Vikings that they'll be able to outplay Dallas for a good portion of this game. I look at the Vikings defense. It's had its struggles. I will acknowledge that. But I look at the Vikings and just say they've been a little more consistent. They should have been able to beat Kansas City. And I just don't see the Cowboys' offensive weapons nearly being as talented offensively. There's no Tyreek Hill. There's no Sammy Watkins. There's no Kelsey. You have Cooper, who's not bad, and you have Michael Gallup. But besides that, there's really nobody else that brings a lot of consistency or ability for Dak to be able to throw in this game. And I just feel like, again, the Vikings need this game more than Dallas does. Dallas can still contend for the division, with how Green Bay's playing and them still having a game lead and how close the NFC wildcard picture is. I feel like the Vikings will play more desperate, and that should be the difference for them to win this game. So that's why I like the Minnesota Vikings here, +3, and the Minnesota Vikings straight up. And then finally, the 49ers over the Seahawks. I want to congratulate Russell Wilson for tying a career high in touchdowns and 5 touchdowns in this game. But, and by the way, they did play the Tampa Bay 31st worst pass defense, so it wasn't like it was going to be that hard to shred the Tampa Bay secondary. But the biggest reason why I'm taking the Niners is this. I look at the San Francisco 49ers and I say that is a ferocious pass rush. And with how banged up the Seattle offensive line is, no Justin Brent, the center. They're back. They're working with Dwayne Brown, who's been up and down of injuries. DJ Fluker, who's been up and down of injuries this year. And I just really like what the Niners have been able to do defensively. And Jimmy Garoppolo became the first quarterback since 2012 to throw for 4 touchdowns. I think they said the first time since 2002 that a Niner quarterback threw for 4 TDs and over 300 yards in a regular season game. I just also think for me with this game, it's just a lot about where the Niners are going to be the home team. And I think that, look, over the last few years, 2014 was an example of where they beat them. on the road. Nick Mullins beat them last year in San Francisco. Jim Harbaugh's had a few wins in San Francisco. And I just really like what the Niners have been able to do, going out 2 on the road. It's kind of a weird story because the Seahawks are 3-2 at home this year, and they're 4-0 on the road. So you could argue that this is an advantage for Seattle that they're going on the road because they somehow seem to play better on the road. But this is going to be Seattle's first genuine road test because they beat the Bengals week 1 at home. I mean, they beat the Falcons on the road. They beat the Browns on the road. They beat Pittsburgh on the road, who doesn't look bad now, but they just didn't have Ben at that moment. And then I forget, they beat Atlanta, they beat Pittsburgh, they beat Cleveland, and they beat... I'm trying to think, who was the other team that they beat on the road? Arizona. Yeah, they beat Arizona on the road. So this is going to be their first genuine road test against a 49er team that has the second best defense in the league, one of the better pass rushes, and I feel like they're going to be able to get healthier. Joe Staley should be able to come back, which I think will be significant for the Niners here. And I just think, again, can Russell Wilson make a lot of plays? Sure. Can he spin out of a lot of tackles and sacks? Sure. But I'm going to take the 49ers here. Better pass rush, home team, and I just think that the Niners defense, the Niners offense will be able to make more plays against the Seahawks defense than Seattle's offense will against the Niner defense. So those are my thoughts and comments, those are my thoughts and picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page to see a bunch of other great prognosticators like the Electric Football Show, Johnny Talks Sports, Logan Schiff, Bridgewater's Finest, Gioknows and Billy B with their college of pro football picks, Hatbox, TheBlindCanadianCat, Redzone Rosano, all those guys and gals that make picks just like I do every week. Please check out their channels and look at their videos. Andrew Warren, check out all their videos and see which ones, which picks do you agree with and which picks do you not, and, what are your reasons why. And just to see, what other people are thinking. So that is it. So good luck to all players, teams, coaches, fantasy players, and fellow prognosticators. And until next week for Week 11, this is Matt the Fanatic signing off. Until next time, so long.